He couldn't make it at quarterback in the NFL. He couldn't make it as a offensive weapon or whatever they used him as there as a jet. He's not going to be a good tight end in this league. He's been in a couple of fantasy leagues that we've drafted. Now these are teams that are Debbie depleted, player depleted. He went in the second round of a 3-round draft. I mean, I get it. If you're in that situation, you're going to take a stab at him, whatever. But don't bank on this guy to do anything for you, because he's not. I don't think he's going to make the team. I don't think that he's got whatever it takes to be a tight end in this league to make the team. And if he does, to me personally, and this is my opinion, you can love it, you can hate it. To me, it's just an Urban Meyer way of saying, here, I'm going to get you a paycheck. You're going to come play for us, and we're going to let you see what you can do, to make something out of your career. Because you were a legend for me at Florida. You won the Heisman, national championship. You did all these things for me. And I'm not taking anything away. He was a fantastic college athlete, one of the best we've ever seen play at that position. I mean, for goodness sakes, the year he took over at quarterback, my FSU Seminoles did not have a chance against Florida until he was gone. He dominated them every single year. So you can't take away what he had in college, okay? But it doesn't equate to the NFL. And what he has now at the tight end position, to me, it's just a token of charity from Urban Meyer to him to give him a chance. And I'm still waiting, for practices to start here in the fall, and he gets cut because he's a roster liability, and they need space to free up something else. I just don't know that he'll make it as a tight end. To me, it just blows my mind that people are just thinking he's going to be so good at this position. I just can't see it happening. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. With that, we will move into the meat of the topic for this Memorial Day. We're going to jump into the Big Ten breakdown, and I'm starting with the Illinois Fighting Illini in the Big Ten West Division. Keep in mind, the Big Ten had a really condensed season last year. Some teams playing 4 games, some teams playing 5, 6, 7, depending on what COVID did to them. It was definitely a really condensed season. Illinois was 2-6 last year. And up and down the board, I get all my information from Ourlads. So you may find something that says different, but my depth charts and heights and weights and all that stuff, my depth charts come from Ourlads. My heights and weights usually come from College Football Reference. But this team is loaded with transfers up and down the board. I mean, they're transfer deep at pretty much every offensive position. And a couple of guys I want to talk about, both of these guys are transfers. Brandon Peters, a transfer quarterback, probably going to be the guy for Illinois this year as they go through their season. But the guy I want to talk about is Jafar Armstrong. He is a transfer wide receiver from Notre Dame. And if you've heard that name before, I've talked about him before on other previous episodes when he was at Notre Dame. He's 6 foot 220. And he can come in and be an instant asset for the Illinois Fighting Illini at the wide receiver position. He's played at a big-name college, and he's played at a big-name level, with big-time players around him. And this is going to be a guy that they can lean on, that Brandon Peters, if he does indeed get the job, as the quarterback, because none of this stuff has been set yet, that Jafar Armstrong, can be a guy to lean on, and he can be relied on because he's played, at big-name colleges before, and now he's going to finish it out with the Illinois Fighting Illini. This team is, like I said, got a lot of transfers. I don't expect a whole lot more from this team. Maybe they find 4 or 5 wins, but they're really needing some big-name firepower and some big-name recruiting to help them out and get their team going, in the years to come. But if you're an Illinois fan, at least this year you can look at, okay, we've got a decent quarterback, and we've got a guy at the wide receiver position who has played at big-name level, and we've got something to look forward to. I'm not going to pick predictions, but I would assume that Illinois would fall towards the tail end of the Big Ten again this year, just with what we've got, looking at this conference. Moving on from them, I'm going to the Purdue Boilermakers, another team 2-4 last year. Rondale Moore did not play. This team had the potential to have maybe the best 1-2 punch, and not just the Big Ten, but maybe the best 1-2 punch in college football had Rondale Moore played, with also David Bell, 6'2", 205 junior wide receiver who, let's face it, when Rondale Moore got hurt 2 years ago, when Rondale Moore got hurt so bad, I think it was concussed so bad that he was out for the season. And when he went down, David Bell picked up the slack and really showed the Big Ten and the nation, what he could do athletically on the football field. And this guy is a Devy asset. This guy is a college fantasy asset, and he's a big time player, for the Boilermakers and the Big Ten. Redshirt junior quarterback Jack Plummer I think it's going to be in his second season since Sindelar left. He has another really solid asset to throw to, much like Peters at Illinois. Plummer has Bell to rely on, and Bell showed that he could catch the ball from anybody who wanted to throw it to him there at Purdue. Over the past couple of seasons, they've had a revolving door of quarterbacks. Elijah Sindelar got hurt. He was a couple of seasons ago, Sindelar was just a stat machine for Purdue, and he got hurt, and then it was just a revolving door at quarterback, but the one constant on that team is David Bell. Purdue is a team that you look at in the Big Ten, and you say, this team, okay, they might not be a blue blood of college football, but when you look at Purdue, they are one of the pillars of the Big Ten football conference. When you think Purdue, you think Big Ten football, and they're one of the teams that come to mind. Obviously, you think Ohio State, Michigan, maybe even Michigan State, Wisconsin, Nebraska. Not so much Nebraska because they're pretty new to the conference. But when you think of Big Ten, and this is me personally, I think of you got Ohio State, Nebraska, and you got Ohio State, Michigan, Purdue. Those three teams stick out in the forefront of my mind, and Purdue's been a stalwart there in the conference, and you want to see this team succeed. You want to see them do good, and I like Purdue. They're a good team to root for, and they just always seem to just be a good school, and Purdue's playing. Purdue and Ohio State game, that's good time right there. I mean, a couple years ago, Purdue knocked off Ohio State, and they're always that team that's just right there. They're going to play you tough. They're going to hit you in the mouth, and they're going to play tough football, and they're going to play Big Ten football. So if you're a Purdue fan, there's a bunch out there. You've got some potential this year, and you just hope you catch a couple of breaks and things fall your way. The aforementioned Nebraska, 3-5 last year, relatively new to the conference. They moved from the Big 12 to the Big Ten a few years back, and they got a 1-2 punch here of Adrian Martinez, junior quarterback, and this is kind of his year. As a freshman, he had a lot of hype with his mobile ability and his able to move around and throw and all things like that. And he was okay. He was good. wasn't fantastic, but he was good as a freshman. Last year, the crazy season, and may have suffered some injuries. So I'm giving a lot of these guys a pass on last year. That's why I'm not really talking stats and numbers and things like that in this episode, because I'm just going to throw them all out the window, because I'm just giving them all. We're going to wipe the slate clean. 2020 was a turd, and we're going to start fresh. So I'm giving everybody a pass, and numbers aren't going to be that big to me, in this walk across college football this year. So this is the year for me, for Adrian Martinez to step up. It's his third year in this system, third year with Scott Frost, and this is his time. And what does a great quarterback need when he's looking at taking the next step up? Well, he needs a couple of good things. He needs a couple of things. He needs a decent offensive line, and he needs a couple decent receivers, but you also need a running game that you can kind of lean on when things really aren't going your way. And he has that in a transfer from USC and Marquise Stepp. He transferred out of USC, transfers to Nebraska, and he's gonna be one of those instant impact guys that you can rely on, hand the ball off to, and rely on the running game to help get your passing game going. There's another running back that transferred out of USC. I'll get to him in a little bit, but USC lost 2 running backs, which paves the way for Keontae Ingram transferring to USC. I'll get to that when I cover, the Pac-12. But 2 running backs left USC and are now in the Big Ten. So I'll get to the other one here in just a little bit. But you got Adrian Martinez and Marquise Stepp is a good 1-2 punch for Nebraska. And this is kind of a year for Scott Frost, too. I said before, I'm wiping everybody clean. Everybody gets a clean slate. Scott Frost, Nebraska needs to be better. They need to be better than the 3-5 season with we only played 8 games. But if you play them 8 games, you want to be 5-3, not 3-5. So he has to do better this year, and I believe Nebraska will be a little bit better full season. Let's keep injuries out of this for right now. Everybody stays on the field. You'll see a different Nebraska team than you did last year. Speaking of quarterbacks that are just primed to take the next step, we're going to Wisconsin next. 3-3 a year ago, playing in 6 games, and they got 2 guys here I want to talk about. One is redshirt freshman running back Jalen Berger. He's a guy to watch out for in your college fantasy, and also maybe turn into a Debbie Darling. If the stars align right. He's got good size. I love those 5'10" to 6 foot running backs. When you hit 200 pounds, to me, you're a really good, solid built, well built running back for the next level. But the guy that really, the straw that stirs the drink in Wisconsin is Graham Mertz. Redshirt sophomore, 6'3", 225, and he was the big time hotness last year when we was firing up when the Big Ten decided to finally take off. And they finally decided to play football with a shortened season. He was one of the guys when you talk Big Ten quarterbacks. He may have been the second or third guy, that came up. It may have been Fields, Tanner Morgan, and then Graham Mertz. And I'll get to Tanner Morgan here in Minnesota in just a minute. But this guy's got all the tools, all the possibilities, all the ability, and all the potential to really be a fantastic quarterback for Wisconsin. He needs to put it all together. Last year, we're wiping clean. He struggled a little bit. Probably are we going to play? Are we not going to play? We're playing, we're not. We're playing, we're not. And, that affects people. That gets to you, and you're like, well, then you finally decide to go, and then you got to gear up your mind. You got to gear up your mind to get going, and, it may affect it. He was only a young kid, a freshman at the time, redshirt freshman last year, so he's a redshirt sophomore this year. So, yeah, that's a lot for a young kid to process. But he's got great size for the NFL level. If you are playing in college fantasy where you're playing in a 2-quarterback league or like the one that we run with our College to Canton League, we're running 3 quarterbacks because there's so darn many between the landscape of college football. Graham Mertz is going to be a guy that's going to be in your lineup week in and week out because he's going to produce for you, at high levels, or you expect him to. So, with that being said, Wisconsin's got the potential to really, not only challenge, for the West Division this year, but, make a run for the Big Ten championship. And I don't know that they're going to win the Big Ten because you got some serious firepower on the other side of the coin, in the East Division. But I think that they could rival Iowa and they could rival Northwestern, for a chance to represent the Big Ten in the Big Ten championship. Now, is it going to get there? Probably not, because Iowa's set up to win the West. I'll get to them here after I talk about Minnesota, but they can be up there. They can be relevant, and they can be a force, and you're not going to roll over for a team. You're not going to go in and play Wisconsin and just have them roll over for you. So Wisconsin's going to be a team I'm looking forward to watching and paying attention to see how Graham Mertz develops this year with a regular season with a new season, regular season, and see how he performs for the Badgers. Minnesota 3-4 last year. and they lost probably the most explosive wide receiver